Good evening, everybody. My name is Idriss Zahidi. I'm currently a doctoral student in the EDD program in St. Peter's University under Dr. Nicole Luongo. The book that I selected was Michael Fullan's Motion Leadership, The Skinny on Becoming Change Savvy. So just a little bit of a background about Michael Fullan, the author of Motion Leadership in Action. He is an international expert on educational reform. His focus is on system reform, leadership, and capacity building. Lastly, he's an author of influential works on organizational and educational change. So after our overview of who Michael Fullan is and what he's done in terms of education research, let's get into the book itself and first off start off with the purpose, the why. So what was he thinking while he was writing this book? Throughout our discussion, you'll notice that I'm going to be selecting different quotes that really embody that section of our discussion. So let's take a look here. He says, motion leadership, what we were doing in our work was helping leaders move individuals, institutions, and whole systems forward. Now, this is key to what he was trying to embody throughout the book and trying to disseminate in his knowledge. The key here is a focus on behavior and not theory. A lot of the times we have a lot of textbooks or books themselves that inform the reader about theory that is ideal in a classroom or that is ideal in an institution, organization, or at the district level as an educational leadership. But Michael Fullan really wanted to captivate this concept of mobility and mobilization through motion. This idea that motion itself is a play on words, that we see that a good leader, an effective leader, is engaged, is active throughout his or her leadership. And on top of that is that fact that they can produce force or move not just themselves, but the people around them, the system around them, or the actual organization around them. So leaders themselves create movements in their organizations, and obviously positive ones are the goals. So in short, the purpose, I believe, of Michael Fullan's motion leadership is to provide practical information to disseminate ideas for leaders to understand how to implement effective and sustainable change within their educational organizations. So focus on behavior through short and actionable principles. So after understanding the purpose of the book, Michael Fullan's why, now I want to tackle a couple of concepts that I believe stood out while I was reading. The first is modeling intended behavior. Michael Fullan says, motion leadership, this theoretical clarity derives from practice. And as with all of these matters, by studying and facilitating motion, we learn the particulars. In this case, what he's saying is that there is a process. We're facilitating motion through the leaders learning the particulars of their organization, learning the context that which they are in. Leaders then model the change they want to see, so they're active catalysts for that change. They're moving as a model. Whatever they do, their subordinates, in this case teachers or coordinators or even students, are noticing those changes and starting to embody them through the act of modeling. So this is basically a concept that active leaders engage in to model desired actions that will organically shift organization beliefs. It's basically the concept of behavior weight into new thinking, and consistency drives that transformation. So to further reinforce this concept of modeling behaviors that you want to see in your organization as a leader is the concept of being a force for change. Again, Michael Fullan is playing on this concept of activeness, motion, force, all along the same lines of just understanding the concept of being someone that is engaged as a leader. So he says, if the leader is overly respectful of the existing culture, he or she will become absorbed into the status quo. This is a quote that cautions new leaders or leaders that are joining new organizations to be careful of becoming a top-down leader or a hands-off leader. A lot of times leaders need to be in the middle, but they struggle because they're trying to gain a sense of communication with the teachers or rapport. or at the same time, they're trying to impose ideas but may be perceived as tyrants. So what Michael Fullan is suggesting is understand who you are as a person. Combine empathy with insistence. This is a key point here. Yes, a leader should be empathetic. A leader should have good relationship with his personnel and his staff. But at the same time, a leader should be insistent on what they believe in. They should be a force, a drive that will move the organization in a direction that will enhance it. And this actually aligns with other researchers like Freeburn, Fracter, and Brunet, who mention this idea of an intentionally impactful leader, a leader that understands how to be the catalyst for change while also embracing his personnel, his staff, and making sure that they're along the ride, not just as bystanders, but in effect, also active movements of change. Then leads us to this idea of collective efficacy that Michael Fullan really stresses throughout this book. He places an emphasis and says, for example, in this quote, "The skinny is that nothing succeeds like collective capacity." And just as this diagram shows, teamwork, support, partnership, creativity, solution-based mindsets, trust, and communication all inevitably lead to success. This is a big concept that also other researchers peddle, like John Hattie, or again, Freeburn, Fracter, and Brunet, who understand that collective efficacy, or this idea that there is a system built on habits around best practices that provide time for authentic collaboration, will ensure that systematic knowledge is disseminated through the organization. Practical understanding of how to approach different situations and contexts will be embodied by the whole, not just by the individual. And this collaboration itself drives improvement in the system. And together, leaders cultivate peer influence. Every person becomes a leader in one shape or another in the system, allowing for an acceleration in change, of prosperous change and sustainable change. And with strong built relationships, you can then understand the implications that Michael Fullan has in his book. As we can see in this quote that I selected, it's clear that change-savvy leaders always know that you can't directly make people change, but you can create a system where positive change is virtually inevitable. People align with the understanding that we are one if they feel like they're incorporated in that whole as a unit that is significant, valued, respected, and empathy has been shown towards them. So in fact, the implications of this book show that simple systems can be powerful. And on top of that, as a new leader, there has to be some sort of cultural change. And it starts with you as a driving factor of that. And at the same time, those leaders must be able to adapt. They must be able to learn in context, understand that this is shared ownership, that at times you may have to be transparent about mistakes that you make, that at times you're learning from your peers just as much as they're learning from you. You're taking guidance from them as much as they're taking guidance from you. And together, you create a capacity building that is momentous. It builds on itself and it's continuous in nature. In this specific book, understanding all of the concepts and implications that Michael Fullan pushes, it's clear that he does it in a concise and accessible manner. The book itself is a digestible read, and the major thing that I found that was a strong point, and I believe we need more of, is this concept of practicality, not just theory. A lot of the times we read textbooks or books and see the ideal versions of what teachers are, of what administrators are, of what district leaders are, of what leaders in general should be or how they should act, but it really isn't transferable in the field. So the practicality aspect is a strong point of this book. I believe that in places where there could be improvement, the book itself is a short read. It's about 100 pages. So it doesn't really leave a lot of space and room for nuanced thinking or unpacking. And at the same time, It requires a well-rounded leader. So this leader already needs to come with a set of skills, a set of knowledge. And this book is just helping you direct that energy to be a productive and effective leader. But it doesn't really provide practice opportunities or scenarios you can run through to see how to be a productive or effective leader. And so these are some points that the book could gain from or understand to add in the next version. And lastly, the key takeaways from this book are simple. The first is that this book acts as a roadmap for leading change. Michael Fullan offers basically this concept of understanding that leadership should not be viewed as a title or a position, but in fact, it should be viewed as a constant changing mode of approaching the organization you're in, a system building tool. So leadership itself should be about motion, not position. Next, it establishes an emphasis on relationship building. We need to understand that before we even can try to change an organization, we need to have the concept of belief change or cultural change. So what that means is when you are embraced by your organization and the personnel in it, then you can start establishing the momentum needed to emphasize that change you're looking for, and do it through transparency and consistent action. And lastly, Fullan motions towards sustainable change. This is a big concept that a lot of leaders don't usually plan for. This requires looking ahead and self-reflecting on how you can leave an organization or how you can step away from an organization and have it self-run through small and disciplined actions, through actions that are collaborative in nature, where most of the organization understands how to embody the intended behavior without the leader being present. So this is a full summary of the implications, the key concepts, and the book itself, which presents a lot of strong and positive energy that many new leaders may look for in terms of guidance and how to finalize their steps before engaging in taking a role in a new organization or system. Lastly, we've reached the references where I made sure to follow APA citations and format for all the artwork I selected to use throughout the presentation, and for the quotations that I've selected throughout the book. Finally, thank you so much to all my classmates for a productive semester, and thank you, Professor Luongo, for all of your help and your guidance.